Let's talk about Lasone. When I was working on the book around, I think, 2019, 2020, I had all these playlists that I would listen to for inspiration and to put me in specific moods because the book covers so many time periods. And so I was going through this phase of listening to a lot of tribal stuff and chanting and new age stuff. And I came across this artist called Aurora. And her music is amazing. I love her music. But more than that, she had such an extraordinary look about her. She had like this rough cut, chopped bangs going down to a bowl cut to her mouth with pigtails on each side. And she would wear all this tribal stuff. And in some of her videos, she had face paint, and she was singing about like spiritual stuff and the environment and things like that. And so for me, as soon as I saw her, I was like, "Oh my God, that's Lasone." And but more than anything else, her mannerisms are just like how I imagined someone like a HSP, a highly sensitive person in that time period, in that world. And so for me, she really, really did embody what I envisioned for Lasone. I think she's beautiful. I'm not saying she looks like a Neanderthal. What I'm saying is, with very minimal CGI or prosthetics, she could totally play that part because she's a much slighter build than what we, project or imagine or recreate as a Neanderthal. And in the book, Lasone is this slighter person, this non-traditional Neanderthal. So I just thought she would be perfect for the role. As far as her name, when you're writing a story, you have to come up with all these names. And some of the names in the book have a lot of research behind them. Not only the meaning of the name throughout time, but also sometimes they represent scientists or famous people that were in the fields or line of work that the character is portraying. And I'll go into more of this with other characters. But with Lasone, you're trying to think of what would a Neanderthal name be. And so I wanted something that sounded like a harsher word, sort of, like, because if the Neanderthals did have like lower registers or, whatever the musical term is for limited range for their voice, which we don't know if they truly did, but so I was trying to think of names. I'm like, oh, what am I going to call her? She's one of the main characters. But then I wrote the scene where it says the last spear navigator on Earth, and I can't remember if I went back and replaced whatever her placeholder was with this name, or whether I thought of it first and then added that part to the last scene. I can't remember, but her name basically stands for last one. And so I kind of tweaked it and it became Lasone. So it's a technique that is used a couple times throughout the book, but it was just a way of generating a unique name that also sounded like it would fit the time period and fit that specific culture. When you're writing these scenes, at least for me, some of them are very emotional because you create these characters and, some people can say, well, how could you have this character do this or that? But it's like, this is not me doing it. This is, in a very real sense, what this character would do. I'm just like putting down on paper what I theorize or project the character would do. If they did something other than that, it would be so out of character, it would not be them. It would be such a, divergence of their normal patterns or their identity. And because of that, when you have a character you really like and you got to kill them off, it can be hard. I mean, because like I was writing her life arc, you know, and when you're writing that from childhood to the end of someone's life, it makes you think about death. It makes you think about your own life. It makes you think about aging. And I had to portray her as having dementia or Alzheimer's, which was very, very hard because you're imagining this person diminishing in a respect, disappearing. And, they say if we live long enough, we all get to that point. And I've seen it, and people that I've talked to that have talked to me about how to stop it or reverse it or treat it. And it's just really rough. And so also, you're talking about a subject, spirituality, where we don't know officially what happens after we die. So I'm writing this scene of this person that is at the very end of their life. They're mentally falling apart. They have to execute this technical spiritual maneuver in a specific way and not quote unquote screw up. And so it was very like gut wrenching for me to write it, and I would honestly like cry sometimes during parts of it because it was almost like, you're working on this stuff again and again, and it was like reliving her life cycle again and again and having to be the person that ultimately, killed her off. And it was just very rough.